I thought, we didn't follow up that strategy. Maybe next time, just match up the minutes.
He's still angry.
Doc Rivers might be one of the most polarizing head coaches in NFL history. On one hand, he is a proven champion because he was able to take the big three of Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce to the promised land and win a NBA championship with them. But his haters would say that the fact that he only won one championship with that big three is a little pathetic. And trust me, the fact that they're consistently prancing around and reminding you how that Celtics big three won a championship in 2008 could be a little annoying, but Doc Rivers isn't necessarily a part of that. Yet this individual has had head coaching gigs for the past 14 years and he's produced some very polarizing results, and it seems like he's in a similar situation once again because it looks like the stars of his team are getting into some turmoil with him. We have the interview clips to back it up. So before we get to the content, we're giving away $500 to a subscriber that turns on their notifications on this channel. And now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. This video is sponsored by Albert. Unlike banks, Albert's actually going to save you money. Instead of just opening up a traditional savings account and hoping that you remember to put some money into it, Albert looks at your income and expenses and sees what money you could save. They offer 5 to 20% cash back from places like McDonald's, Starbucks, and Walmart. And the best part is they have your back so much that they'll spot you up to $250 when you need it. And most importantly, they'll help you manage your money with one of my favorite features on the app, Genius, which is a team of financial experts that Albert has that they call geniuses that will look at your situation and help you come up with a plan and answer any of your questions if you get stuck. And right now, when you go to albert.com/TFM and open up a checking account and connect a qualifying direct deposit, you'll get $150. That's albert.com/TFM to download the Albert app, open up a checking account and connect a qualifying direct deposit to get $150. And thank you, Albert, for today's sponsorship. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? One of my favorite teams in the NBA right now is the Philadelphia 76ers, primarily because it looks like this is a team that has everything they need to compete for a championship at this point. From a guard that could create for his teammates and take over games, and the fact that that guard is very dominant in isolation and has shown proficiency in the pick and roll, at least in the very beginning, once they did acquire James Harden, more on that later, to one of the most dominant big men that we have seen since the days of Shaquille O'Neal. And I really mean that. Joel Embiid does things that I expect guards to be able to do, but not centers in today's NBA. But despite that, you're having the Philadelphia 76ers struggle a little bit. And this isn't necessarily the time that you want to struggle, considering the fact that the NBA playoffs are just 2 weeks away. Currently, at the time that I'm making this video, the Philadelphia 76ers have lost 3 games straight. Now, you might be wondering, why is that so significant? Well, when the Eastern Conference playoff picture literally seems to be within a few games away of one another, each loss is crucial. You can make a pretty damn good argument that right now the entire Eastern Conference is playing playoff games. I mean, just take a look at the standings for yourself. The Miami Heat are just half a game ahead of the Milwaukee Bucks. The Boston Celtics are 2 games back from first place. The Philadelphia 76ers could easily jump up to 3rd place, or they could fall down to 5th or 6th place even. I've never seen a playoff race this close, and in these situations you want to make sure that team chemistry is good, the players are getting along with one another, and of course your players don't happen to dislike your head coach, which is the issue here. About 3 nights ago, the Philadelphia 76ers ended up losing to the Milwaukee Bucks, and what was a heartbreaker, honestly. They only lost by 2 points. They were ridiculously close to beating the defending champions, but unfortunately they weren't able to do it. But what's surprising is what Joel Embiid said at the press conference once they lost.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the bench the whole time when I was on the floor. I really made sure that I was always there to help. And, I thought, we didn't follow up that strategy. We didn't build a wall, and he had a lot of free lane to just attack and get whatever he wanted. And that changed the game. Maybe next time, just match up the minutes.
So that definitely raised some eyebrows. And then today when I woke up, I saw multiple articles on how some individuals within the Philadelphia 76ers are reportedly, quote unquote, not feeling Doc Rivers. I love the way that this is prefaced. It's not, we don't like Doc Rivers or we want a new head coach. It's, we don't feel Doc Rivers. And tell me if this sounds familiar. It seems like any close Sixers game these days inevitably leads to a discussion over whether Doc Rivers is the right coach for this team. That was the case after the Sixers lost to the Milwaukee Bucks in dramatic fashion on Tuesday. Then you had Joel Embiid criticizing Doc Rivers. And although it doesn't seem like Joel Embiid had intentions of sabotaging his head coach, it just seems like this is all too familiar to me. I mean, tell me if this sounds familiar. Losing a crucial close game that could without a doubt boost your spot in the seeding, or just a crucial close game in general, and then either being critical of your team or having your team criticize you. You might be saying, Mike, at what point is Doc Rivers being critical of his team? Well, last night when
I don't really want to do the work today. I don't really want to do the work today.
the Philadelphia 76ers lost to the Detroit Pistons, Doc Rivers ended up blaming James Harden. No, straight up.
The bench unit struggled compared to their bench.
Well, they didn't struggle. They didn't get a lot of shots, in their defense. I think during that stretch, it was more James, than them. So, yeah, it's just a tough night.
And to be fair, in Doc Rivers' defense, yeah, James Harden had a horrific game, going 4 of 15 from the field for 27% in total, having 3 turnovers, but dishing 7 assists and 9 rebounds is just a very bad game from one of your star players. But historically, Doc Rivers does this, and what's really funny to me is he's actually apologized for doing this in the past, yet he continues to do it. You remember when the Atlanta Hawks beat the Philadelphia 76ers in last year's Eastern Conference semifinals? Do you remember what Doc Rivers said about Ben Simmons?
You think Ben Simmons can still be a point guard for a championship team like the one you guys want to become?
Yeah, David, I don't know that question or the answer to that right now, so I don't know the answer to that.
It just seems like we're consistently seeing the same pattern over and over again, which kind of makes me wonder why the 76ers fired Brett Brown to begin with. Now, according to the Ringer's Wosny Lambre, which I apologize if I butchered your name, bro. He had this to say in regards to what's going on behind the scenes with the Philadelphia 76ers, saying a few weeks ago, because I'm decently tapped in with the player side of what's happening with the Sixers, though I don't know anybody in the Morey administration, I'm hearing like, man, guys are not feeling Doc. His rotations, his philosophy, what he's doing, guys aren't feeling it. To me, sometimes you can chalk it up to be like, I should be playing more, but that's every NBA player. So I'm like, I'm ignoring this. The Sixers are in LA last week and I'm out and about getting dinner, and I run into somebody who's close to the team. I'm like, sorry, but I can't pick you guys to go to the finals this year. His response kind of raised my eyebrows, saying, neither would I. Oh, okay, maybe that's hyperbole, maybe you're having a bad week. I'm not even thinking about it, but this is a running tally of what's going down in Philadelphia. Now, Lambre could be right. This could be just an individual on the team just being frustrated over his lack of playing time, because every NBA player feels like they should be playing at least 35 to 40 minutes a night. And of course, this is coming from a source that I'm hearing for the first time today, and what are the odds that this is real? I'm unsure. But if you take a look at just how the Sixers have been recently and how he's been with the Philadelphia 76ers throughout his entire career, in 147 games as the Philadelphia 76ers head coach, Doc Rivers has a 95-52 regular season record. His team was the first seed in the East last year, and they're really close to being the first seed in the East once again, which is really good. But here's the problem. For the past 4 years, even before Doc Rivers came around, it seemed like the Philadelphia 76ers were extremely dominant in the regular season, and once they got to the postseason, that's where the wheels started falling off the wagon. And honestly, that's a problem a lot of teams have. I mean, the Utah Jazz had that exact same problem last year as well. Hell, if you take a look at all the top seeded teams in the East when LeBron James was still on the Cavaliers in the mid 2010s, typically they would get absolutely spanked by the Cleveland Cavaliers at some point in the NBA playoffs. Whether it was the Toronto Raptors or the Atlanta Hawks, it didn't really matter, because at the end of the day, LeBron James would absolutely crush them in the playoffs, even though the Cleveland Cavaliers weren't necessarily the greatest regular season team. And I feel like the Philadelphia 76ers might be dealing with the same thing here. But the difference this year is they traded a player who couldn't really take over games in Ben Simmons and got themselves a bona fide star that could take over over games in the regular season, I want to say. This is no disrespect to James Harden because I love the situation he's in. I love the basketball he's playing with Joel Embiid. I'm just saying historically, this man hasn't necessarily had the greatest luck showing up in the playoffs, but the fact that they made this change and the fact that the 76ers have the depth that they do, they should be one of the top teams coming out of the East this year. They should at the very least make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, in my opinion. This all seems to be consistent with problems that people had with Doc Rivers in the past. Typically, things to do with his rotations and his decisions are usually what frustrates fans that are watching a Doc Rivers-led team. Do I ultimately think that the Philadelphia 76ers will fire Doc Rivers? It really depends on how the rest of the season goes. Bear in mind, he's also dealing with some really difficult stuff. You just traded one of your players for a brand new star player in the middle of the season. So chances are there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period to make sure all of that works. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about this report. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.